Now available in paperback and e-readers, The Temptation of John Haynes. Given to temptation, pick up this action-packed African-American paranormal romance. Get The Temptation of John Haynes in paperback and e-readers today. The art and the literature of a culture oftentimes give us a snapshot of what's going on in a certain particular period of time. And the art and the literature give us a commentary of what's going on in that era and really make a statement between the lines of things like images. And images are very important because, again, they give us a picture of what's going on in history. And when I look at this image on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine, it gives us a picture that is quite troubling as related to the image of black men. Because in this image of a black woman leading the protest to march to what it looks like a courthouse or some sort of municipal building, we see her raising her fist with her son at her side, but somebody is missing from this image. And I want people to really critically think about who's missing from that image because, yes, while this woman has a picture of George Floyd on her t-shirt, the person who's most important, who should be in this image leading this protest, is not there. And that person is the black man. So when I look at this image, it's a troubling one because we do not see the black man in this picture. Because in order for a black life to matter to a black man needs to be up front leading his own cause and going out here and standing up and stating his issues to the world. Because a black woman cannot fight for the issues of a black man because the racism she experiences is completely different than the racism a black man experiences. Because in the days of slavery, the black man was seen as the bigger threat because of his physical strength and, to some of these white racists, his alleged sexual prowess. And these white men, when they see black men, they see them as a threat to their livelihoods and even their genetics. So this image, by omitting the black man and erasing the black man, is about minimizing the issues of black men as related to racism and saying that the black man is not even a factor in fighting for his own issues. This is about emasculating and neutering the black man and saying that the black man as a collective cannot fight for his own cause, cannot fight for his own issues, cannot stand up for his own issues, or even lead on his own issues. And he is so weak and neutered that he is in the role of a child and he is following behind the woman. That is the statement made in this painting on the cover of Rolling Stone, that the black man is not capable of fighting for his own cause, leading his own cause, and demanding that his agenda be put first in the aftermath of these George Floyd protests. Yes, you have George Floyd on the t-shirt of this woman, but the troubling image here is that we don't have black men anywhere featured in this photo. I mean, it looks like there's one or two black males in the background, but there is no black man taking the lead in this protest, and no black man demanding his agenda be put first. And if there's no black man out there putting his agenda first and making demands as related to reforms of police and opportunities provided to black men in the form of reparations, then these struggles as related to Black Lives Matter are actually a complete waste of time. Because the person who is targeted for racial profiling, the person targeted primarily for police brutality, the person targeted for police violence and railroading through the criminal justice system is the black man, but you don't see the black man in that image. And this image is about Black Lives Matter, But when you literally look at this picture, it shows you how Black Lives Matter really is not about the issues of black men. Because if this image was about so-called Black Lives Mattering, then you would have an image of a black man leading his own march for his own issues. And it would make a statement to the world saying that black lives matter to black men, to the point where black men would be going out here to not only march and protest against their government, but lead that march and protest against their government while they present a black agenda to these politicians and demand that in order for them to rectify the situation, they need to give us what we demand in our black agenda, such as constructive police reform, and give us things like reform of the child support system so that black fathers can find a way to get back to their families, and give us reforms that give us support that allow black men to be invested in with things like jobs, things like loans for black-owned businesses, and building a black economy, and things like bringing black people back into municipal jobs like teaching and police so that they can protect and preserve their own community. We don't see that in this image. No, we see a black woman leading this protest, and this protest for justice is not going to be one that's going to, as I see it, get any justice, because when you have a female leading a black man's cause, she cannot address his issues constructively, because she has not experienced what a black man experiences in this world. Because again, the way the world sees black men and black women are completely different, and the racism they experience is completely different. And this image, again, it emasculates and neuters the black man by putting the black man in the role of a child and saying that the child has to be led by the black woman. And that's, again, a condemning statement on how society sees the black man as a collective, because they don't see the black man as a leader. They don't see the black man as an authority figure. They don't see the black man as a father. And that's quite troubling, because many of the problems we have in black communities are primarily due to these single mother, female-headed households that were created during the feminist movement, because the social engineering of those female-headed households is what led to many black communities falling completely apart. Now, again, in this image, they're marching and protesting, but but again, you don't see the black man marching and protesting for his agenda, and the black man's agenda is not on the table as related to these protests, as related to George Floyd, because the George Floyd murder, while it was the murder of a black man, the issue of police brutality is a black man's issue. And what's troubling is that Black Lives Matter has run up front on this issue, and you've had all of these other companies running up in front of it, and they're running up in front of it because they don't want to give the black man what he was promised many years ago, for all the way back from the 40 acres and a mule to the affirmative action hires that were given to white women. And now, with the murder of George Floyd, you have all of these companies and all of these governments, all these state governments changing policy, but the black man is not there with his agenda to let people know what he wants. And again, that is a mark against the black man and black men as a collective, because we should be the ones leading this cause and demanding justice and demanding our government give us the tools and the investment in us in order to rebuild our communities, rebuild our families, and get equal justice under the law. And those are the things we should be fighting for in a black agenda, but that's not being heard, because your Black Lives Matter, they want to push other agendas like the alphabet agenda and single mothers as an agenda, instead of an agenda to help black men who are the ones who primarily are the ones murdered by these brutal police officers and these race soldiers and these beta males out here. We're the ones getting murdered out here. However, there is no talk of anything to help us at all. And that's, again, really troubling, because you have all of these companies talking about they're donating money to fight for people of color, or they're donating money to talk about race relations, but that does not help the collective of black men. What helps the collective of black men goes as follows. We want police reform that prevents racial profiling, police brutality, and punishes rogue and brutal officers. That's the first thing black men want in their agenda. The second thing black men want in an agenda is an investment in fatherhood and an investment in black families, because these family courts have gone out of their way to punish black men for being fathers, or even, and made it almost impossible for a father to even get access to his children. So these family courts, they make it where single mothers get all of these benefits for being single mothers, but they don't make any efforts to give fathers any sort of equal access to their children, to stop the dysfunction that goes from generation to generation, leading to a prison pipeline from these government from the public schools and the government facilities all the way back to the correctional facilities. So we want to see some investment in black fathers and building black families and making it where it's possible for a black father to have a voice in his own family and his own community, because for too long we have had black women like the one on this image promote this victim narrative, saying that the father really wasn't there, the father didn't care, and that the father was somebody who didn't want to help. But they don't want to talk about how she had an equal hand in creating this family that's dysfunctional and doesn't want to take any responsibility and does not want to submit to the leadership and authority of a black husband or a black father. Now, the other agenda is promoting marriage between black men and black women. Now, I know that runs against your Black Lives Matter, but that is how you build strong black families, and that would be also a part of a black man's agenda, is promoting marriage between black men and black women, so that we can have a father in the home and a husband over his wife and taking care of his household. Because when you have fathers and husbands in the community, they invest in the community and they build and maintain standards for a community. And that's something many don't want as related to a black community. They don't want to see black fathers return to the community, and that's not part of any of the mission of Black Lives Matter, to see black fathers returning to the black community, seeing black husbands return to the black community, or seeing a black man in any sort of position. Because if we look at this image again, we don't see that black man in that leadership role, and they don't want us to see a black man in a leadership role. But in a black man's agenda, he needs to be there. And we also want to see in our agenda, again, support for black-owned businesses and building black-owned businesses. And we also want to see support for creating these black businesses and group economics. Now, these are things that are all part of a black man's agenda that aren't being addressed, in addition to dealing with things as related to housing and getting access to getting loans for for buying homes and things like that. And we also want to see a black man, again, in a position where he can be rebuilt into a leader and an authority figure, because these single mothers, like you see in this image, they're the ones who create the dysfunction in the black community, but they are being heralded and celebrated by magazines like Rolling Stone as leading the protest, when they're the ones who lead the dysfunction and create many of these children of the corn out here. And again, I look at this image, it's a troubling one, because people are celebrating a single mother leading the cause of a protest, not understanding that this image is condemning as related to black men, because it's showing that the only black man they respect is a dead black man, and they will go out here and protest regarding the death of a black man, not understanding that the black boy is actually marching to protest, not knowing that he could be the next one on that t-shirt. And they're talking about Black Lives Matter, but the most troubling thing is we don't see that in this image the person who needs to be leading the protest, who is this black man. The black man should be the one leading the protest of his own cause. The black man should be the one leading this march and demanding change. And that's the thing that this image really tells the story that's quite troubling, that we don't have black men leading the charge, and our society of whites and non-blacks, they don't see a black man as somebody they take seriously. No, all they see a black man as is on the same level as this child being led by this black woman, and that this black boy and a black man are on the same level. So when I look at this picture, it's a very condemning picture on these leftists, these right-sided people, and all of these whites and non-blacks and black women. It's a condemning statement about how they perceive the black man and how little the black man's life matters to all of them. Because according to them, a black man's only value as related to anything is he's only good if he's dead, and the only value he has as a human being is to be used as a pawn towards pushing a political agenda, because that's what Black Lives Matter does to black men. They use our deaths as a way to go out here and further their political agendas for single mothers, for members of the alphabet community, for whites and non-blacks. They talk about Black lives mattering, but they don't want to go out here and fight for black men. The only good black man for this movement is a dead black man, and that's again a condemning statement on them, but it is also a condemning statement on black men out here, because it shows how weak black men are as a collective. Because if we were out here fighting for our own cause, I guarantee you that the response from all of these people out here would not be this effort to try to bring change with these symbolic gestures. No, we would be met with the hardest of resistance, because whenever a black man stands up and fights for his cause, he is seen as a hostile person, he's seen as an angry black man, and he's seen as a violent brute. And the rhetoric would not be things like Andrew Cuomo here in New York saying, "You've won, now we're going to do something." No, it would be that black man is hostile, he's a threat, and he needs to be dealt with and prosecuted to the full extent of the law. So we wouldn't see all of these symbolic gestures because a black man was doing the protest. No, we would see all of the hostility being directed to us. And the only reason why they're doing these symbolic gestures is because they know that when your black woman and a black child are the ones doing the leading, they can easily be pacified with these trinkets and these symbolic gestures. So this just again is another statement on how neutered the black man is, how weak the black man is, and how they're saying our lives matter. And again, that's another statement, because the one who died is a black man, and it's not about because we've never been considered a part of this society, and this image shows how we were not considered a part of this society, because they talk about our lives matter, but you don't see any black men in this image standing up for themselves and leading the charge all together to say a black man's life matters to black men, and that black men are going to come out in force to stand up and demand change. And most black men are not going to stand up and march and protest, because they know that that's absolutely useless, because they know once you've done the marching and protesting, that's the time to present an agenda. And again, your black woman is not in a position to present that agenda, because she experiences a different form of racism than the black man experiences. And the culture that she teaches to her son is that all racism is the same, but it's not the same, because the black man, he has to deal with a far more hostile version of racism than the black woman, and that racism is not addressed in this image. In fact, this image just shows you, again, how little Black Lives Matter thinks about black men, and how little people in these political circles of the left and the right think of black men, because again, in this image, they don't see a black man as a black man. They see a black man on the same level as a child, and they have no respect and no regard for a black man unless there's some black woman talking for him. And again, that just shows how weak that black man is, because he's not speaking on his terms, he's not speaking about his issues, and he's not speaking about his agenda. And if we're not getting our agenda addressed, then all of this marching and protesting is absolutely a complete waste of time, because if you are really serious and dedicated about your cause, you're going to come out and lead your own cause and fight and stand up for your own struggle. Now, if you want to pick up some of my positive African-American fiction and read some stories from a black writer, you can pick up my books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle formats, and you can also find them on Smashwords, the iBook store, and Google Play. And if you want to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, and my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.